Welcome to the Centre Circle podcast, the new home of West Midlands football. Thanks for tuning in and please like and subscribe.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 18 of the Centre Circle podcast, the new home of West Midlands football. Joining me today we've got Mark who from way back in episode 8 joined us to recap all season so far. How you doing, Mark?
How's it going? Yeah, not bad.
Good. Coming up on today's show, we're going to be quickly recapping the Wolves game today against Tottenham, and we're also going to be dishing out our end of season awards, which are going to be consisting of the match of the season, the signing of the season, the player of the season, manager of the season, the flop of the season, and the underdogs of the season. We'll also be looking forward to Wolves next season and what we feel they need, what we need rather, to strengthen and to kick on. And then we'll also be making our predictions for next season for the top 4 and the bottom 3. So jumping straight into today's game against Spurs, a 2-0 defeat. I wouldn't say a lacklustre performance. There was enough fight on the pitch, but not enough quality. And that seems to have been the issue for quite some time now. We look pretty sure of a 12th place finish, barring probably a couple of wacky results from the teams directly below us in Palace and Southampton. But looking at their fixtures, even I can't see them kind of overhauling what we've got on the board already. And I think that considering where we were, I don't think 12th would be all too bad. So what was your verdict on today's game?
I think you'd normally say if you go to Spurs and only lose 2-0 or like in that type of game, I think you wouldn't be too fussed. But you've seen them in recent weeks; they've been on the ropes, and I think we've missed some chances today, but it doesn't feel like we have. It doesn't really feel like we had much in the game. To be honest, we're not horrendous. It's but when we're bad. I actually think we could be the worst team in the league when we're bad. We get dominated for periods of usually halves more than games, where we look just barely a championship side. It's scary how bad we look. Like the first 15 minutes of the second half, it was like watching an FA Cup game, and I think that's something that's got to change for the next year. We didn't look like that the last 2 years. We've not looked like that for years, to be honest. I can't remember the last time we did. I'm not disappointed with the result necessarily. I'm just disappointed the way it happened, and I think we capitulated again. We conceded, and it just once we conceded, we were lucky. It was only 2 really. With a few bright sparks. I thought Traore had a good game. He's had 2 good games in a row now. But again, midfield, very, very lacklustre. The defence, I get this clearance thing that Gary Neville was banging on about, and that's why I gave man of the match to Cody, but we wouldn't have been 1-0 down if it wasn't for Cody. So,
granted, I just think we're a bit too leaky, in my opinion, this season. Obviously, you look at the goal difference; we've just leaked far too many goals. We haven't scored enough, but there's an excuse for not scoring enough. We have got excuses for that. We've obviously missed Neto for the past 5 games. We've had Jimenez pretty much out for most of the season.
Foden can't stay fit.
He can't stay fit now. Traore has just been, bang average for long periods. So there has been excuses in those areas. But at the back, I mean, granted, Johnny's been out and we've had Bolly out, who's our best defender. However, we've got enough to come into the defence that shouldn't make that much of an impact like it has up front. We haven't got those, people, the reinforcements to bring it up front, those at the back. The quality, yes, it does dip down, but we've still got the players with experience to come in there. Patricio was probably at fault for the second goal today. But
yeah.
What was Hoover doing in the corner? What was Hoover doing?
We've got arguably one of the worst squads in the league. I can't think of many like even the likes of Sheffield United, their squad is about as good as their team. Like, so what I mean is like if they lost somebody, I don't feel like it's that much of a downgrade. Like they're already just not that good. Whereas with us, like 1 to 11 fully fit, I think we can give most teams a game, and I think we're probably a top half team. Like even with the loss of like Jota last year, Doherty and players like that, but you lose Jimenez, you lose Bolly and Johnny, and it's horrific. Like them players that are playing for us today, a lot of them, they wouldn't get in any other team in the Premier League, and they wouldn't get into a lot of the teams in the Championship.
That's a bit harsh, but I see what you're getting at.
Like Hoover,
I see your point.
like that Hoover, yeah, whatever he's called. Like I think he's a good player in there. He's he's only just 19 or whatever. I think he will be pretty good. But if I supported Bournemouth next year in the Championship and they got him on loan, I wouldn't be thrilled.
Get what you're saying there. So moving on into the summer, let's just say, for example, we're going to have to put Johnny out of the picture because we really don't know where he's going to be at. But
I think 2 cruciates, you have to write him off at this point.
I think, but let's, for argument's sake, say that, potentially Neto, but Jimenez will be fully fit. Moving into next season, yes, we know we need to build a bit of a squad, but let's just say with players that we're returning on loan, players that are going back and currently we're not signing on permanent deals, who would you sign on a permanent deal and what areas would you strengthen in?
I'd keep Aït-Nouri.
Take up 18 million on him?
Yeah, because I don't know who else we'd get. I think that would be the other. That's. I think you could argue Vinagre comes back, but I think Aït-Nouri's already been possibly better than Vinagre.
See, my point, sorry to put in on this one, but I would say with Aït-Nouri, I wouldn't take up the 18 million, and I think that is only attached to his age rather than his ability. You could go out there and probably sign a player. I mean, I'm just putting this into perspective. I'm not saying we'll go and get him, but he's no better than El Mohammadi at Villa. Whereas you could go and get a player like El Mohammadi, who could go and sit in a fullback position for probably 3-4 million because of his age. So if you are only going for a player of that sort of quality, I don't see why you would go and spend 18 million on Aït-Nouri.
I don't know why there wouldn't be an option to extend the loan under the same terms and have another year of him. I'd be interested. I'd actually be interested to see if Vinagre came back and have both of them. I've seen more end product already from Aït-Nouri than I did from Vinagre. So on that sense, I think as well that if you said it's 18 million for Aït-Nouri, but it's 18 million you get for Vinagre, which is what was meant to be happening when he was going to Olympiacos, was it?
Yeah.
I'd do it. So I get what you mean. If it's 20 million out of the pot that could be spent elsewhere, then yeah, I'd be a bit worried. But if it's essentially a swap, I wouldn't be too fussed on it. Vitinha is a weird one. There's been games I've watched. He's been the best player on the pitch. I thought he was awful today. Really, really bad. And don't worry, he's a kid. Like he is a kid, but I think you've got to watch out to keep paying all this money for potential because one of them will make it. But if you spent 100 million on 5 teenagers and one of them comes good, you might get most of your money back if that player really comes good. But you've not made anything. There's no progress really been made because you've signed 4 flops. Again, he'd be one I'd like to see if we can get him back. I don't particularly want to lose him because our record with sending players elsewhere or letting people go, like Goncalves, is it? That's at Lisbon. I mean, I think there was a lot more to it than that. I think the reason he didn't work out is because he was homesick or something. So I don't think there was much we could have done. But it's just when you've got them sort of players there, to if you've actually got them in the dressing room, you don't want to lose them if they're going to turn out to be any good. So I'd be tempted to try and keep him. Jose, I was a fan when he first came and I thought he offered what we needed at the time. The bloke hasn't scored enough goals. That's the end of it. I think so. I wouldn't keep him. I don't think there's anyone else on loan, is there? No. I think bringing in, to be honest, it sounds really drastic, and but believe me, I've made this list before the game today. But the whole spine of the team, for me, I think I'd start in goal. I think Patricio's going to leave. I think he's going to go to Roma. But I would look at another goalie.
Say Patricio does go, we should be getting some good money for him.
I think because of his age, I think you'd struggle. I think that the asking price, well, not the asking price, the rumoured amount's about 10 million quid.
I'd be disappointed if we were to give in on that price.
I mean, the thing is with him, I quite like him, but statistically, he's one of the worst goalies in the Premier League. He has moments for me where he's a top 5 keeper in the, not currently maybe, but like he's had moments where I'm like, God, this guy is unreal, like top 5 in the world, good. And then he has moments where I'm like, he shouldn't even be playing football. Like he's a very, very strange player for me. But I would look at another goalie. I think they're quite optimistic about the kid that's coming back from Shrewsbury on loan. That's not what I want to be seeing in Cole next year, if I'm honest. Don't get me wrong. Bring him back in, put him on the bench, give him cup games, and if he does impress, then that's an option in the future. But I don't want to throw some kid in just because he's got 15 clean sheets in League One straight into the Premier League. It doesn't work like that.
Well, you know that I've been champion for Dion Sanderson to be playing next season, so you can rip me apart on that one.
I think with him though, like he's had a season in Cardiff where he was very good in the Championship at the top end of the Championship, and also he wouldn't be brought back in to start. I think anybody who wanted that, I think that's a bit optimistic as well. You know, the same as the kid that's been on loan at Shrewsbury. You know, bring him in, let him sit behind whoever is in goal. If it's Patricio, there's a lot of experience there. I mean, the two that I've highlighted as a potential goalie. Sorry, Albion fans, Sam Johnston's one. I think just like Patricio, like the opposite of Patricio, I guess, like his record probably suggests he's not a great goalie in terms of when he concedes, but how many, there's not many players that can get relegated and play themselves into a potential England squad from nowhere. I think he's had a great season. The other one would be, it's a bit of a punt, but I'd go Kepa. I think he's a price tag at this point.
They're going to want their money back. They're going to want a good chunk of that money back.
I think they'd want a healthy up front. I think you'd be looking at, say, something like a 20 million up front with add-ons depending on performance related, so they could try and get some back if he actually did get good. But I think trying to convince any team to pay anything for that guy at the moment is going to be difficult. And I think if you took 20 million on a punt on a goalie, the worst case scenario, I think he's always got a bit of a resale value to Spain for sort of 10, 15. And I think on the plus side, you're signing a young goalie that is in an absolute toxic environment that can have a fresh start. And if he turns out to be good, I mean, I don't know his exact age, but I'm guessing he could be the goalie for the next 10 years.
Essentially, I mean, De Gea, when he first come over to United,
he was awful.
He was just the same. And I've always looked at him and thought that there was probably a little bit more about De Gea than Kepa, but I don't think
I agree.
Kepa deserves what he gets sometimes.
For me, where I'm based now, like my partner's a Chelsea season ticket holder, so I see it quite a lot and hear a lot about it. But for me, Kepa's a price tag. Like Mendy was 20 million, Kepa was 70. If you put the same price on him, for me, I genuinely think Kepa's the better goalie. But I just don't. I think the value for money factor makes you just not like him. So for me, that would be the odd going goal. I think I'd prefer Johnston, to be honest, because I do think we need a bit more of an English spine. But centre half's the next one, and that's probably the biggest area of concern. If you said that nobody leaves, if you say you've got the exact same squad as you've got now, centre half's the massive one. I mean, for me, you're free
to ship out whoever you want. Going through the fantasy list.
But I think, I mean, there's obviously a few. Like, I'm not Cody. I don't think Cody's got a place in it for me. I think he's a squad player. I think I can happily keep him as captain if he wants. But I think he's an overrated captain. Personally, I think he speaks very well off the field. I think he's very good in interviews and things like that. I think he's good as a captain like that. In terms of when we try and defend, And the way we capitulate on the pitch, I think our in-game management is horrendous, and that's the captain. No one else. I think Nuno gets a lot of flack for that sort of thing. He's not there managing on, he's managing from the sideline, but he's not on the pitch. He's not, once they cross that line, essentially, there's only so much he can do. And for me, we always start each half really well. And the minute something bad happens, we've got no backbone, we've got no spine. I'd say we need two. For me, again, you said the word fantasy, and it's that's kind of the way I'm looking at all this. But for me, we need to go in. We need people that are used to this league. I'm fed. I don't want to take any gambles. I want to know what I'm getting. The ones I've put down, Tarkowski. I think that's a bit optimistic, but I think the interest now seems to be in Ben White and Lewis Dunk, and it's kind of gone away from Tarkowski, from other, your Leicesters and your things like that. Do I think we'll do it? Not a chance.
You got to look at what he's worth to Burnley as well.
Yeah, 100%. Other one, O'Connell from Sheffield United, more of a right back option as well. Can play either like centre half or right back. Vestergaard from Southampton. He's probably the worst defensively out of this list, but I think he offers a hell of a lot going forward as well with the fact he's about 7 foot. And the other one is another Chelsea player, actually. This is the last Chelsea player. It's Thomas Christensen. I think he's kind of been pushed to the outside now by Chelsea, and I think he could be somebody you could get in. And does he look great in a Chelsea shirt? Not all the time, but it's very different playing for a top 4 side than what we're even trying to be at this point. Centre midfield is the next one. Again, Albion, Pereira. I think there's always going to be that link there with his, he is Portuguese, right? He's Portuguese, Brazilian, one of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Brazil. I think a player like that, like he came from Benfica, if I'm right. Like it's just it fits where like it's a shocker it went to them. Really, it's like it's more of a Wolves signing to get from the get go. Other players, Sander Berge from Sheffield United. There's room.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a few in for him.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. It depends on this release clause that apparently he's got. I think if you can get him cheap, I think he's worth it. Because to be honest, he looked pretty poor for Sheffield United. But I don't know how much that's the team and how much he potentially gave up. But yeah, like again, there's a striker coming up just to spoil that I think is even more pie in the sky, to be honest. But and then we've already been linked with Guedes, is it, from Valencia?
Mm-hmm.
I'd take him straight away. I do think we need another winger because I don't think we've got any consistency on the wing, so we need as many as we can get. The same with the South Korean guy from Valencia, Lee Kang-in. Again, I can see it happening with our owners of obviously with where they're from in the world, and just the fact they'd want to make it more marketable, a bit like Son has been for Spurs. Wild card for that is Ryan Kent from Rangers. Whether he'd come, to be honest, at this point, I don't know. But I think every time I've watched Rangers, which I'll be honest is limited, he's been the best player they've had. And then striker, I think a lot of it depends on Jimenez. If
would you keep on to Rafa Mir? Because he has had a decent season.
It depends. Like, if you're getting those guys from Valencia, for example, he's just scored all them goals in Spain. There's rumours where you're basically getting those 2 lads from Valencia giving up a bit of money on Rafa Mir. I'd take it. Like, for me, he couldn't do anything in the Championship, and he didn't do anything for us. Yeah, he didn't do anything for the Championship for Forest, and he didn't do much for us either. So I'd get rid.
I want to see us in a position next season where we can get Silver out on loan somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I would still sign a striker. Like, a striker's still on my radar. But I think I would worry that if you get Rafa Mir back after a good season in La Liga, which, with all due respect, is a horrendous league. Take the top 3 out of it, 4. It's not a good league. He's had a great season. He has, and I think he's given himself a chance if he wants to come back to Wolves. But I think that's a big gamble if Jimenez isn't Jimenez anymore. You've not got Jose, which I'm not saying is a bad thing, but you haven't planned around that, and you just shove Rafa Mir in and hope for the best. I'd quite like, again, it's already been rumoured before, the guy that's on loan at Spurs at the moment, as a replacement to Kane. Can't think of his name from Benfica. Carlos Vinicius, is it?
Yeah.
I'd take him. I think he's been rumoured previously with us, actually this season to come.
Scored a few in the Europa League, and I remember him getting a hat-trick, I think, in one of the games.
Yeah, he scored. I think he scored 4 against. When they played the non-league side as well. Obviously, it was non-league, but yeah, out of all the options they've ever put in trying to get the bench player for them to come on for Spurs, I think he's been the best one. Probably just had the least opportunity. The other one is somebody I think is we have no chance or we'd have no interest, but is Dusan Vlahovic from Fiorentina. 21-year-old kid. He scored 20-odd goals this year. I think, he's rumoured to already have signed for Milan. But again, I think that if we're clicking buttons on FIFA or Football Manager at this point, that's who I'm going after as Wolves. But I think, to sum it up, to be honest, we just need a complete new change of ideas. And I think when I last came in and we spoke, I think we were sort of on, it was the debate on Nuno and stuff. I'll be honest, I don't even think the debate on the manager's even there anymore, because I think regardless of what you think of his football, of his tactics, of anything, that this team's not good enough. And I think you're a fool if you think he's got at least any big say on the playing staff. I think that's evident is that we're run by a much higher power than that. And I think we need a complete restructure of the team. And I think if then next year the board, we do invest, we do get some more exciting footballers in the door, and the squad looks better, and we're still playing boring football, we're still not getting anything out of them, then I think then you can start changing the manager. But I think to change the manager and bring, I actually think we're getting the most out of a lot of these players, to be honest. Do I think that a Frank Lampard or someone else is going to come in and get as much as he's got out of Romain Saiss? Nah. So it's not even a saying I think Nuno's done brilliantly. I just think, for me, we need a lot of change. And I think if we start changing the players and the manager, yeah, it could go really well, but it could also go very, very badly.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, I promise you all, it's the last time I'm going to bring this up. I was calling for Nuno's head, but I thought I put together a fairly calculated argument for it. It was that at the time we had a perfect window to move on and change in a different direction. The football wasn't good enough. The performances wasn't good enough. They still aren't, and neither is the football. It was just that, obviously, if we were going to change it in the summer, why wait? Could have done it then, because we were only ever going to finish pretty much where we are now anyway. And obviously the tipping point for me, emotions invested, it was the FA Cup game. But it is what it is. We've moved on. Like you say, he probably has got the best out of what he's got to hand at the moment. And to finish 12th, realistically, under the McCarthy era, we would have been absolutely bouncing off the ceiling.
It would have been our best season by, I want to say, nearly 20 points. I can't think of many years we got more than 35, 36 points. And I think we're on 46 now, are we? 45? And you throw Jimenez in as well. How many goals, how many points he's worth? It's.
It's to think, oh great, how many goals would he have actually scored? But he, there's no doubt about it. He's worth at least 10 points.
He'd have had 2 goals today. As much as I love Fabio Silva, and I think Fabio Silva's going to be a fantastic player. He'd have scored 2 today if he had the same chances. Plus the fact he makes his own as well. Jimenez, that's why he's such a good player. So yeah, I think Nuno has earned another go, but I think that next year is the year where you're going to get fans back in the ground of some capacity. Whether that's going to be a full house, we don't know. But there's some performances this year. The Burnley game, that's unacceptable. And you can lose any game in the Premier League, and we're not good enough to not lose any game. But there's ways to lose, and that wouldn't be tolerated if that was a full Molineux or even half full.
Agreed. I did say the same about Southampton. I think when the team sheet come out, I think that
Yeah.
was the one that everyone looked at and thought, when you see Leicester going on to win it, we're miles behind them. But to suggest that it wasn't winnable, of course it was, because on our day we are capable, and without a Man City, if you avoid Man City in the run, why can't you go and win it?
I think the caveat to the Southampton game is that I don't think that performance, that team sheet is made if there's fans in the stadium. I think if you've got people paying to come and watch that game, I don't think he throws that team out there.
And that was partly why I was even more angry about it, because I knew deep down that was probably the truth. And that is unacceptable as well, that in itself. But whilst we're on Leicester, do you know what? Fair play, and congratulations to Leicester, because for me, watching that yesterday, Chelsea have won it again, or like last season. I know it's obviously a big trophy to Arsenal because it's pretty much all they've won since they won the Premier League in 2003. But to actually witness another, like when Wigan won it, it actually brought a little bit of value back to the FA Cup for me. It meant something, and you could see it. Whereas to Chelsea, they've got bigger fish to fry. They've got a Champions League final in 2 weeks. It really did, and everything that's gone on within the last month in football, with Sky and BT getting on their high horses. Let's all remember this, that the back end of last year, these mercenaries were going to charge pay-per-view football, and they were going ahead, and they wanted to carry on with it. There was one club that voted against it, one club, and that's Leicester. We all like to believe, right, that we're this fantastic for the fans run club. We all like to believe that, but at the elite level, and that's what I'm talking Premier League, there is not many at all now that are left. Even down to Championship, you talk about prices, what they do for the fans.
While we're on that, while you've just mentioned that,
they're a proper run club, and fair play to them.
While you've just mentioned that, I'm sure every single Wolves fan, especially one that was offered and have politely declined, the £45 that Wolves want for next week is an absolute disgrace. I'm not asking for free, and I don't think many other Wolves fans are. And there's something that's kind of been sort of avoided, is that people like myself and quite a few others, we've been asked to pay £45. I'm in the last category, but people have been asked to pay 45 quid. They still owe us 4 games from 2 years ago. Now, don't get me wrong, the club can have it. Like, if it means we sign a better striker next year or a better midfielder, like if it matters that much, you can have me 4 games worth of money. I don't need the money, But I think when some of us didn't ask for money back when you needed it, when there was a pandemic, when you didn't know when your next game was going to happen, we didn't do that. And then I think to charge 45 quid for a game that doesn't mean a thing, I think there's other clubs that have done the same. Sheffield United are charging 45 quid for their last home game in the Premier League. I mean, it makes us look great. It makes us look good. But yeah, I think I said to speak for most Wolves fans, I think it's absolutely disgusting what the club have done. And the club have done a lot right off the pitch for a lot of years, but I think for about a year and a half, they really haven't.
Our pricing structure's never been great anyway. Our pricing structure. I remember when we used to go away under the McCarthy, we went a lot of places. The boys down the road from us were given free away travel.
Yeah, they do once a year, don't they?
So, okay, that's recap to Wolves then. So let's crack on with the end of season awards then. Top of my list, I've got match of the season.
Do you know what? Like, this was hard, because I feel like with that fans, this makes it a lot harder, because I think there's like less memorable games. The one that stuck out, you're probably going to say something that's going to make me like completely remember a different game, but for me, the Spurs West Ham 3-3.
I've got the exact same. Game.
There's not been a lot of football, I'll be honest, that I've really enjoyed watching, and I'll come on to that in another award in a minute. That game was brilliant. And it was when West Ham were poor as well. Like, they were really bad. And do you know what? That game, if I'm right,
after 16 minutes.
If I'm right, that game could have started their entire season.
Possibly.
I could be wrong. I don't know the date, so I'm clutching at that. But they were so bad for half an hour and went 3-0 down. And then the fight back was fantastic. And then obviously the last minute goal, the only bad thing about that was no fans, because, you know, away from home, 30-odd yard top bins, like in off the bar, that would have been you know, absolutely ridiculous. I mean, match of the year, if you'd have asked me the last 2 seasons, I could have easily given you a Wolves game, but I literally, as soon as I looked at that as an option, like match of the year, I thought, well, first off, I'll have a look at Wolves' fixtures, see if I can think of any. And honestly, there wasn't one that I could even say it was half decent. So,
okay.
I enjoyed the last 10 minutes of the Chelsea game.
In all honesty, I would have said perhaps, I know it was a low scoring game, but I actually would have said Spurs at home. Maybe I thought that was a really good game.
I think there's been some decent, entertaining games. But I think when you pick your own side, you're after a win, and a lot of the times we've won, they've been, you know, a lot of times they've been because the other teams had players sent off. To be honest.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, Arsenal is the one that sticks out really there.
Yeah.
So we both agreed on that one then. Yeah. To go into detail on that one, it was 3-0 after 16 minutes to Spurs, and it was still 3-0 at 82 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, then. So the next one we've got is signing of the season.
Okay, I'm glad you've done it this way around. The signing of the season for me is the reason Man City have won the league. It's Ruben Dias. I think there's definitely some honourable mentions. The one I did want to go to was a bit of a weird one, because he signed, like the other one that I was sort of debating, because he signed in January last year and then signed permanent in the summer, and that's Souček from West Ham.
I thought you were going to say.
But he technically joined them last year. But to be honest, Dias for me has made the difference, and I think you saw that at the start of the season. They weren't great, City, at all. You know, the run they've gone on actually is possibly. The run they've gone on is arguably better than when they did like the Centurion season, but it's just they started quite poorly. I remember watching them obviously their first game was against us, because their season was delayed at the start of the season, and they actually didn't play too bad against us, but they still weren't anywhere near what they were. And for me, he's the reason they've won the title. He's the reason I think they are favourites for the Champions League. I knew it at the time. People sort of questioned the fee. As soon as Wolves were rumoured, as much as that may have not been true, but as much as that was written down, I've seen little bits of him before he joined. He's class. Like if he plays the next sort of 7, 8, 9 years at City, he's going to be considered one of the best Premier League defenders, I think.
He's just an absolute bastion, isn't he, at the back?
He's just a leader.
I actually give some thought to this, and the reason I didn't pick Diaz is just because the fee made it obvious for me that he should be that good if he's being spent that much on. But he is, like you say, he is fantastic, and like, you know, I think when Van Dijk's back and fully fit, you would say both of those two are the best centre halves in the league. You know, probably by some margin. But through gritted teeth, I am going to give this one to Martinez for Villa. And the reason is 17 clean sheets in the bottom half team is a fantastic achievement. Now, you would put that down to the fact that they're obviously, you know, you can't just have a great goalkeeper, and you've got to get clean sheets.
Yeah.
You know, obviously the back four has been good as well, but whenever I have seen him play, he has made some fantastic saves. His distribution is bang on point, and he's one of the best in the division. There's no doubt in my mind for that. Everyone raves about Edison, but this guy is as good for his distribution. So I am going to give it to Emiliano Martinez. He was, you know, you could see at the cup final last year, he was really emotional with Arsenal, and, you know, he'd obviously got a massive emotional attachment to the club. He desperately wanted to stay. You know, his loyalties were all there. But Arsenal have a bit of a knack for letting go decent keepers, really. I mean, I'm not saying Fabianski's a world beater, but he's done okay at West Ham. And
he's had a good career off the back of it.
He's actually a really good penalty saver as well. I remember Ali Al-Absi as well at Wigan. He was always good at saving penalties. Wojciech Szczesny gone to Juventus, being a number one, much bigger and much better club than Arsenal. So these players seem to just sort of propel when they go away from Arsenal. So for me, Emiliano Martinez, and for you, Ruben Dias. Next on the list, we've got player of the season.
Okay.
Not got a problem with you doubling down.
Yeah, well, I have. That's why I've not done it. I didn't want to be boring with it. If I had a vote on the PFA player or whatever it is, like, it would be Diaz. Diaz is the best player in the league this year. For me, the player of the season, in a period that's been so hard to watch football, if I'm honest, without fans, it's just not been for me the same watching it. It's been difficult. There's been very few players that I've really wanted to watch. The one that's made me want to watch the games more than any other player is Phil Foden. Do I think he's the best player in the league yet? No, but I think he's the player that makes me want to watch. And for me, that's what a player of the season does. You know, a centre half as good as Diaz is, I don't watch that. Like, that's not what I want in a game of football. I think Foden is probably the best player of. Okay, I was 6-7 when Gaza was still playing for England and stuff, but like, in terms of raw quality of what he is, like absolute talent, he's got an abundance. Like, his the thing I like about him is he's not quick at all, Foden, but he's clever and he knows when to. He can get past anyone. For me, he's fantastic, and I'm just so glad he's English, and I can't wait to see how he really balls that up, to be honest, because I'm sure we will. But yeah, Phil Foden for me is the best player I'd like to watch this year.
So he'd get you young player of the year vote. He'd get mine as well.
I guess so, but I think, like I said, I've done it more on who's the player I've most enjoyed watching this year. Is like, that's my player of the season, rather than like who's the best player in the league. Which is why the second would be someone like Mason Mount, who I think is like the B-Tech version of him. I think he's good. He's very, very good. Don't get me wrong. Phil Foden, I think Foden's potential is best player in the world, potentially.
That's a massive, massive show when he's in the same area as Mbappe. Everyone seems to, probably suggest that he's the heir to the throne. My player of the season, I've been quite vocal about this. I've gone Harry Kane. I just think, 22 goals, 13 assists. That's, 35 goal involvements in that bang average Spurs side. He's carried them. He's dragged them through. He's the best centre forward in the world, in my opinion. And again, coming on to how can England balls this up, we've got Mason Mount, Phil Foden. Hopefully we'll have a fit Jack Grealish, but I don't think he's going to get picked for some reason. I just don't feel it. But yeah, the attacking talent that we've got on a first team basis.
Well, balls up, because we've got Connor Cody being considered as a centre half.
Yeah, I mean, a lot depends on the fitness of Harry Maguire for there at the back.
Yeah,
we need him fit.
I actually agree with what Gary Neville says about Maguire with England, because what he's not saying Maguire's the second best player in our team other than Kane. What he's saying is the most important, because we don't have anyone else. And I agree. Like, I don't think Maguire's very good, but I don't think he's like a world-class defender. I don't think he's a Diaz or a...
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you look at the left-back options, you have to flip up a coin. Who cares? You know what I mean? It's like, I look at the left-back situation and I think, remember when you were playing football as a kid, and you had two options in the position, you play a half each, and that's pretty much what it's like, in it, with them, you know what I mean? Right back for me, I know everyone sort of likes to chuck it at Trent, but I personally don't mind. But Reece James, Trent, Kyle Walker, good solid options there at right back. He's not even being considered, is he? That's what's crazy here. He's not even being considered. But, we've got healthy options there at fullback, so I completely agree with what you're saying there.
Yeah.
Next on the list, we've got manager of the season. Few candidates here for me, and I don't mind you running through a few ideas before you give your final pick.
The obvious is to go Pep. Not the obvious as in the only one, but like, he's up there. He's going to win. He's won the league. He's got a 50-50 shot of winning the Champions League, doing a league and Champions League double. But then, a bit like what your argument with Diaz's signing, you spend the money, you get the best players, you expect it. Like, is that the best manager, or is that, I do think he's done an unbelievable job, even with the funds and the backing he's had. I think not now. This would change after yesterday, but I think there's a world where if Tuchel wins the FA Cup and Champions League double from where he took over, I think that's unbelievable. To be honest, the run that they went on, I think they are really dying off now. Obviously they lost against Albion, which was a weird game of football, but they lost against Arsenal. Now they've lost the cup final. Like all of a sudden, they could end up finishing fifth and losing the Champions League, and it doesn't really have the same ring to it. But I think for a while he would have been. I think he'd have been daft to not consider him even on just half a season. I think if they get top four plus the FA Cup win, I think Brendan Rodgers has got to be considered as well. But for me, even though they're not going to get it, I think I've got a list here of what I predicted the start of the season without a ball was kicked on where teams are going to finish. I had West Ham 19th. I wasn't the only one. I can tell you that for nothing. And Moyes, I think he's done a ridiculous job. Absolutely ridiculous job. So for me, it would be Moyes with Pep as a very close second.
Interesting. You've definitely reeled off the four as well for me. I've gone for Thomas Tuchel. And the reasons are they were ninth in the league when he took over. They were ninth. He's gotten to an FA Cup final, beating City en route. He's gotten to a Champions League final. Only two managers before, even Jose, Antonio Conte, Carlo Ancelotti. These are Hall of Fame managers, and not even they could get Chelsea to a Champions League final. So he's managed it in just 6 months in charge. Well, it's less than that, isn't it? It's 4.
I think they have to win something. I think they have to win that final, though. I do think they have to win that final.
I get that. I think
just
getting to the Champions League final is just a massive achievement anyway. I mean, they beat the La Liga winners, the likely La Liga winners en route. They beat Real Madrid, who were just seasoned like hell in this competition. I know they're not anywhere near as good as what they were, but still Real Madrid. Their body of work's pretty credible for me. I am going to give it to Tuchel just because of the way he's turned them around. But for me, my second was Brendan Rodgers after yesterday. I think he's done a fantastic job. But a lot of it hinges probably on the midweek game between them two, because the loser's not going to go in the top 4 if there is a loser.
Yeah, it's funny because about a week ago I sent you maybe 2 weeks ago something, when it looked like Leicester were really caving in, and they still got the cup final, but before yesterday, if you put money on it, you put it on Chelsea. If you're given the same odds, there was a case where I'd say that Brendan Rodgers has messed it up again. Like, he's got him into such a good position, and it's another year. Yeah, it's 2 years at Leicester, the year at Liverpool, where you put them in such a great position and can't get them over the line, and that starts to become a bit of a representation of your management, really. But he's got that cup yesterday. He's got another cup final on Wednesday. That if they get a positive, well, I think for Leicester, if I'm right, a draw is good enough, really.
Oh, Albion have won them up.
Are they?
Yeah.
But yeah, like a draw is going to be good enough for Leicester to get in the Champions League. So I get you. I just think a lot of the other managers have got a lot more to work with than someone like Moyes, which is why for me he's the choice. And I think the nature of if you look at Tuchel came in this year. If Tuchel missed out, not now because obviously he's played himself into a bit of pressure, but if this year he'd have come in, finished 5th in the league, got the Champions League, say, semi-final, and had a bit of a run in the cup. So again, like a semi-final, something lost to City, that'd have been a fine. Like, there'd have been no arguments to that and no sort of whinging at it. Pep, he's done what he's meant to do. Whereas I think with Moyes, they came in this year and they lost the first game to Newcastle, and it looked like it was going to be a really tough season for him, and one where they'd probably go down, to be honest. And without that much financial investment and quite good signings as well. So for me, Moyes has done a great job, and I'm really pleased for him as well, because I think there was a big reputation swing with him where people were saying he wasn't a very good manager. I think he did an unbelievable job for Everton for a lot of years. Took a very poison chalice at United. Again, a very difficult job he went to Sunderland, didn't he? Yeah. And obviously, I don't know enough to comment on the Spanish side, Sociedad when he went there, but I think he's done really well to enhance his reputation again, I think. So, yeah.
Okay. Flop of the season.
Is this team or player or both, or just general?
Well, I think if it comes to team, I think we're all pretty obvious where we'd all be pointing our finger at. But
What, Villa's second half?
we'll go with player.
Okay, I had 3 for player. I'll take it the team's Liverpool, by the way.
Oh, no doubt about it.
Yeah. The 3 players I had, I've had to take one off because he scored twice yesterday, and that's Rodrigo for Leeds. I think for the money, I think it's, his return has been poor. The reason they're where they are is got nothing to do with him. And I think when you're a promoted side and spend 30 million on a player, like we did when we brought Jimenez in, that's what you want. Like, if you're making them sort of strides as a promoted club, that's the impact you need, not sort of 3 or 4 goals. But he did score twice yesterday, so I'm gonna avoid that.
Interested if you've got the same 2 as I've got there.
I'll be honest, I'll be shocked if it's not. The one I'd give it to is Thiago. Or would it be? The other one's Brewster.
Right, okay. Thiago's one of the ones I've got down as well.
Please don't tell me the other one, Werner's the other one.
No. Aubameyang.
That's a really good shout.
I've gone for Aubameyang, and I think that this is based on the way that he won the cup for Arsenal last season. Both those games, the semi-final, the final, Chelsea, Man City, he won those games pretty much single-handedly. And off the back of those games, last season, I said, and I was no shame in saying it, I said Aubameyang at the time. I said, that's it, I'm sold. He's the best striker in the league, and that was even taking into account fully fit Aguero. I said he's the best striker in the league, Aubameyang. He has been absolutely abysmal this season. He's been absolutely shocking. And I know Arsenal have as a collective, but I've just got him.
He's the captain. He's the captain as well. Like, I think the way he's led done some of the things sort of off the field this year as well, and the way he's conducted himself has not been great either. It is a good shout. Someone else who I've wanted to put, but I think he had a really good first 10 games to the point where I don't think I could include him, was James Rodriguez. I think, like I said, he had 10 games where he was fantastic. Like that was why he was signed by Madrid and everything like that. And then, yeah, it's not been brilliant for most of the season. Thiago would be mine. I think it wouldn't be, because I saw it coming. I've never rated him. I thought it was a poor signing when they did it. But
I think it was the fact that his reputation and the fact that he was so cheap, really, in the grand scheme of things. He was quite a cheap signing, and they managed to get it over the line. Look, let's just be honest here. Bayern Munich had just won the Champions League. If he was that key to them and that important, he ain't going nowhere.
But he isn't, though, because he never was, because he never played. He was always injured.
But I've got Thiago in the return minus. So yeah, we've pretty much nailed it there. I've got Aubameyang, you've got Thiago. So we've got, last to mop up then, we've got underdogs of the season, and then we'll quickly mop up with our top 4 prediction and bottom 3 prediction for next season. So underdogs of the season.
Do you mean like who's overachieved, yeah?
Possibly, yeah, I would say so. I'd say that I would define an underdog. I mean, I've got a few jotted down, but there's one that really sticks out for me. Again, no problem if you double down again.
I mean, if we're going on overachieving, if that's the word if that was the word we're going on,
I'd say underdogs. Underdogs probably meaning, yeah, I suppose overachieving really.
I think overachievers. I've got a spicy one, but I do think they have overachieved. I genuinely do.
I know what you're going to say. Go on.
Man United.
I knew he was going to say that. I had a feeling he was going to say that. It's such a bold shout for me. I mean, they're poor. They're poor. They know they're poor. They were
They're not
poor. They were poor
they're going to
under
finish second,
Mourinho,
and they're not the second best side.
They pretty much replicated what they did under Mourinho, weren't they? They've got to a Europa League final, probably going to win it, and they're going to finish second in the league.
Yeah, West Ham is the obvious one in terms of overachieving. Fantastic season. Do you know what? I think throughout the season, there's been a couple. I think Leeds have obviously done bits in terms of.
I have a problem with this one right now. I've gone with Leicester.
I was going to say Leicester as well.
They've got a domestic cup under their belt, and they could finish in the top three. They've also juggled that with a European campaign.
A poor European campaign, by the way. I agree. I get what you're saying in terms of the way they've coped with it, but that for me, if I was a Leicester fan, you wouldn't be bothered because you've won something. But for me, if I was like looking at it as Leicester, like you were in the top four for most last year, you faded away. You've been in the top four most this year to put up the.
Oh, we seem to have lost him. Could be lost in all the in all of the bad weather that we've got here at the moment. Just to wrap up anyway, I've got Leicester, and the reason I've got Leicester is because they only spent £4 million last summer. Sorry about all that technical glitch there, everybody. Caught me mid-rant then anyway. I went for Leicester as my underdogs this season. Reason for that being that they've only got a £4 million net spend last summer. And across the past 5 years, only have a £93 million net spend. Leeds last summer alone spent 95 million. So Leicester have spent less over 5 years than what Leeds have just last year. So I think that what they're doing right now is they're punching way above their weight. Probably just stem from having one of the best managers in the league. But yeah, I just think that to get to that position, I mean, we're seeing ourselves how hard it is to really break it and get right up there. And we were only realistically challenging for a top four spot, probably for a couple of weeks of last year.
I think until COVID, I actually still think without COVID we'd have made the top four. I genuinely.
Well, you could say that. I mean, we came back and we won our first 3 games, didn't we?
It was more what the other teams didn't have. United had injuries at the time. Spurs had Kane out for the season. So I think, but I know what you mean. I think for me, the overachievers this year, I think under a normal year, if you swap say West Ham with Arsenal, I think Leicester win it. I think Leicester are the sort of underdogs. I think in a year where West Ham could potentially finish 5th, like that's mad. Like that's a good 10 places above what anyone would have thought. But Leicester's a good shot in terms of I didn't even think of them.
I think that's the thing. I think for us to sort of expect them to be there is testament to where they are as a club, really. Okay, then so to recap on our awards, match of the season we both agreed on Spurs 3, West Ham 3. Sign of the season, I went for Martinez, you went for Ruben Diaz. Player of the season, again, you went for Ruben Diaz, I went for Harry Kane. Manager of the season, I went for Thomas Tuchel, and you went for David Moyes. Flop of the season, Thiago Alcantara for you, and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang for me. Underdogs of the season, we've got West Ham, we've got Leicester, and moving quickly on to next season, just to quickly mop up then, I want your top 4 in the right order, and then I want your bottom 3 in no particular order.
I tried a really good way of trying to spice this up and trying to be a little bit like edgy and trying to throw a bit of controversy into it, but I can't. I think next year, I think City win the league again. I think Chelsea will finish second. I think it'll be quite close between those two, but I think City will win the league again. I think Liverpool come back, but I don't expect. I think they'll be way off the pace from the title again, and I think United will get 4th. I didn't think Leicester would do it again this year. I've been wrong on that. But if you look at the other teams that you generally feel that could be in the top 4, Spurs, not a chance. Arsenal, I think could potentially be close. Well, they possibly are this year, but closer to the relegation zone than they are the top 4 next year in terms of points. I think they're an absolute mess of a football club. So they're nowhere near. I think without a shock, I think that top four picks itself. I think you can play around with the order potentially, but I think, that's going to be the top four. Relegation. I think Watford are going to go. I think they'll believe that they're better than they are, and I think they won't strengthen. Whereas I believe, like Norwich, for example, it was their planning to do this, is to come up, give it a go, and if they stay up, brilliant. And they didn't. They weren't good enough. They went down. They've won the league by a mile. They've got all the same players. They didn't lose anybody really of note. They'll add a few players now, and I think they'll stay up.
More experience as well.
Yeah. I think the playoff winner, although that would be decided once I know who it is. But I think you'd always back the playoff winner to go down, even though they're not 90% of the time they end up staying up or like being the one that comes
especially
closest.
If it's Barnsley, you don't.
Barnsley feels like Blackpool though, and I know they did go, but like it was close, wasn't it? Like it wasn't.
Final day,
yeah, like it feels like that. It feels like a Huddersfield who did stay up. You know what I mean? Whereas I feel like a Brentford could come up and be revolutionary in terms of attacking and being, even more attacking than say Leeds have, or like even like we were into. I don't think they'll get in the top 7, for example, but like I think they could come up and just try and blitz the league in terms of the way they play. They could stay up, but I think you'd always back them to go down. And then I think the third is going to be a team that's in the league this year. I think it's going to be either Palace, Villa, or Wolves. I didn't have Wolves in there until quite recently, to be honest. But I do. My reasoning for Wolves is the same as Villa. I don't think the team's as good as maybe the position this year suggests. Villa's second half of the season has been awful. Their first half was fantastic. If they lose Grealish and we see what we've seen in the last like 10, 15 games, that's a team in trouble in a much more competitive league. I would go for Palace over the other two, though. I think although they beat Villa today, I think they're in a position now where they've got Roy Hodgson, who isn't going to get you relegated. Not with that sort of budget, and not with like a Londonish club. I think if he went to a lesser club, I think he could, but I think they're a good fit for what they want to do at those two. But I think at some point, and I think it will be this year, they're going to sort of try and move on and try and be a bit more adventurous. And I don't know if it'll work. And they're a club where, if I look at their team, I think it's pretty poor.
I think a lot depends on managers as well. I think one of the things you just mentioned there is about Roy Hodgson. I'd look at Burnley as well. I think with Sean Dyche, I expect that in the summer one of those clubs is going to get a little bit probably arrogant and move one of them on, if not both. Whoever decides to ditch out of them to bang straight away, I'd be pulling the trigger on them. But again, I mean, it could be being controversial here as shock. But how will West Ham get on with their European campaign? I wouldn't expect them to get relegated, but I wouldn't expect them to finish top half either, juggling with the European campaign. Given what they've got. For me,
I think the return of fans is going to be big for them as well. It's not a good environment to play in if you're losing games.
Yeah, the teams I've put down is I've put Watford, I've put playoff winner with a question mark, and I think that does depend on who it is. I think that Brentford, I should mention, I think would be the only team I would fancy to stay up out with them. So if they do come through, I mean, Swansea, Bournemouth, I'd be writing them off as well. One team I always tick every single season, and that's Brighton. I think they're shocking. I think they're really, really poor. They haven't got nothing about them, but they just seem to sometimes, I know I could be then going on to something else and say, they seem to be able to have the ability to pull out a result against one of the bigger teams. But I just think that sometimes you look at clubs that have hovered around there for years on end. Swansea was one they were hanging on. Villa was before they eventually went. Sometimes it just ends up just catching up with you. It depends on what they can do as a club, really.
They just need a striker, they do. They just need a striker. depending on what stats you want to go into, they're one of the best in the league at creating chances. They just can't score. Whether they can keep that up for another year, I don't know. But I agree. They're one. I think Burnley. You've thrown them in before, like with the whole thing with Dyche. I think if they were to move on, I think they would be the prime candidates above Palace for me, because I think their squad's possibly even worse than Palace, because I don't think they've got a player as good as Zaha.
You mentioned about Villa. Actually, I had a little look at the form table, and I think I sent it in the last 15 games. They've actually only notched up 14 points, which would put them 17th. So yeah, that is obviously relegation battling form, isn't it? It is key. It is interesting what you've said about Grealish. If they do lose him, I don't think that they will this year. But if there's no sign of progression next season and he has the same sort of season again next year, I just kind of don't really see how they can hang on to a player of that caliber long term. That's just my opinion.
I think my take on the Villa is they need a new manager, Villa. And that's not to say he's not done a good job. I think he did go in there. It's the job he's done there is a similar role. It's actually very similar in a sense of the job that Kenny Jackett did at Wolves. He came into a big club that needed to bounce back straight away and had a lot of pressure on his shoulders, to be fair, and did deliver. But ultimately, when you get to that next level, are they good enough? I think Wolves found out with Kenny Jackett he wasn't. I think he's the forgotten man at Wolves for the job that he did at the time. And I think Dean Smith could be the same at Villa, where I think it's harsh if he was to be sacked. I think he's done, he got Villa up, he kept them up, and then he's put them into potentially a top half finish. I think that he's done well, but then do I think next year that they can spend, even if they spent another 100 million on players, do I think that Dean Smith's going to attract the type of players that are going to put Villa 6th or 7th or 5th or wherever they want to be? No. So I think if I was a Villa fan, I think I'd really want a new manager, to be honest. And it sounds harsh, but I think sometimes you have to. And teams get, people have said the same about teams like Burnley and stuff in the past, you need to move on and, you need new direction. Well, Burnley are Burnley, and as much as it pains me to say, Aston Villa, a massive club, and to not think that they could attract a better manager than a team like Burnley, I think is a bit daft. But I think if they don't, I think they could risk being quite stagnant, and then it just ends up dropping off very, very quickly, as a lot of teams find out in the league.
Yeah, I think you've made a few good points there. I think that, again, you look at, I'm just bringing up obviously Leicester's net spend over a period of time and what a good manager can do, like a real top manager. But have we seen that at Everton, for example? I mean, we've got the most successful European manager in God knows how long, in obviously Ancelotti with 3 Champions League, and even he's struggling to get a tune out of what you would say is, again, a poison chalice.
If we did this podcast this time next week after the final game of the season, and Everton finished 9th, for example, for me that would be the flop of the season. I think they've
been talked about as potentially challenging for the title, weren't they? At one point, they started their squad.
Put their squad next to Leicester in a lot of positions, like. Maybe not the players like starting players, but the depth that they have is the depth of their squad is a lot better than a lot of teams in this league. And their home record for a team that good is horrendous, with a manager as good as Ancelotti. So something's not right there. So something's not right there. And yeah, I think they were quite lucky to not. The only reason I didn't say flop is because at the end of the day, they are in a position where if they win the last 2 games, they're probably going to finish, I think, 6th.
Yeah. Possibly. Could be. Depends how Liverpool get on today. They could be 1-1.
Yeah.
But yeah. Right. It's been great to have you on, and thanks a lot for your time. And as always, your interesting opinions, let's say. Always good to get people on and get a bit of a variety. So yeah, thanks a lot, and you're welcome back on anytime.
Yeah, cheers. It was nice to speak, not just about Wolves, to be honest, because there's not a lot to say.
No, not at the moment. Right, thanks a lot, and as always, please like and subscribe.